So, welcome to this episode of the Immersive Theatre of Learning, where the magic of theatre meets the power of learning. And with us today, we have Monica Matei, all the way from Copenhagen in Denmark. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And hands up, who has been to Copenhagen before? Ooh, only one person. So tell us a bit about the city, Monica. What's it like to live
What
in Copenhagen?
city? Hmm. It's a very livable city. It is great for biking.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I bike everywhere. Um, it's good at preserving the old buildings and the old architecture, but I think it's also good at blending it with the modern one. And
Hmm.
I think both coexist quite nicely here in Copenhagen. There are also many canals, so there's a lot of water, and they are all clean, so people actually can swim in them in the summer, and it's just becomes a very cozy place, both winter and both summer.
Yeah. I don't have the list in my head, but isn't it one of those cities that is always at the top of a list of best places to live in or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, good.
Like happiest people and so on.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Great. Now, you and I met, well, not physically yet, but maybe in London in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Soon.
but we're both members of the World Experience Organization, and we chatted about a project that you staged, an experience you staged in Copenhagen, and that will be the main part of this session. Later on, we will have a real design challenge for everyone. So everybody needs to work a little bit. So if we are quick enough, then B gets to do a little bit of work as well. And but we're also, of course, open for questions, discussions, and so on. I have a few very general questions to start with. Who in this room is or considers themselves an expat? Not in the technical, not necessarily in the technical sense of the term, but somebody who is living outside their home country. So that's almost everybody, right? So that's the vast majority here, right? So,
However, if I can say, I don't like to call myself an expert.
mhm,
I have issues with the term. It's something very personal. I think it gives some kind of privilege that I don't want to invest on myself.
yeah,
So I call myself an immigrant. I prefer to be called an immigrant. I think it creates this idea of first class, second class
yeah, exactly.
citizens, immigrants, and I really don't like the term, but I guess I'm in that category too.
Hmm. Right. Okay. Yes. Terminology. So immigrant, migrant. Yes. Expat gives this kind of, somebody sends us here, right? So we get this special treatment and so on. But yeah. Okay. Another question, and usually when we start this session, everybody gets the chance to quickly introduce themselves. Most people ask people to just share with us where they're calling in from. We already know that. So I have a much deeper question. And in most sessions on Zoom, this is the moment when 25% actually leave the session. But so far, I've always managed to keep everybody. So let's try another deep question to start with. Today's session is called the magical in between. And however you want to see this, you don't necessarily have to think about cultural experiences or migration, but have you ever felt somehow in between cultures, in between phases in your life, in between jobs, maybe in between projects, in between decisions, feeling perhaps a little bit uncomfortable at first because ooh, it's all about change. And then maybe magical or uplifted or empowered later on. I'm sure everybody has one or two ideas. So I would like us to share. And if you don't want to share, or if you've never felt like this, just tell us where you're calling in from. Um, Monica, have you ever felt yourself in between?
Yes, and this is actually a spoiler of my presentation, but yes, the in-between is where I still feel as a foreigner. I actually love the term foreigner, and I'm trying to use that a lot. And
Mm,
I think there is this space where you are not from here, but you're also not from your original culture anymore, and it's this weird place like where you're drifting. So that would be the in-between for me.
yeah, that's right. And it's also I find this session really fascinating because I mean, as many of you know, I come from the intercultural field, so and went into this experience design space. And you come from the experience design space, right? And the intercultural element is more a personal story, and
Yes,
that's really interesting.
100%.
Yeah,
And I love that every time you and I talk, you always give me like scientific terms, research-based terms for what I'm trying to define
yes,
through my own lived experience.
yeah. I had
So
a almost,
yeah,
almost a bit of a joke earlier on with somebody I wanted to convinced to come to the session, but this person is not available, unfortunately. And we have this term, Veronica, you know this, B, you probably know this as well, of marginality, right? I think it was Annette Bennett who created this and encapsulated marginality and then constructive marginality. And Monica speaks of the magic in between.
it's a
which
way more
which
poetic term than
which which
marginality.
yeah, which term do you feel better with? But it's probably the same thing, right? Okay. Monica, you can you can hand over to somebody who's next on your screen, probably
Oh,
me.
it's Anneke next on my
Anneke.
screen.
Okay. Have you ever felt in between things?
Yes, many times. Yeah, I call it my liminal spaces. So
Mhm.
I'm a freelancer for I think over 20 years right now. So I have this kind of phases where I have to adapt to where I'm coming, but don't lose myself. And then see how my place can shape where I am.
Mhm.
And then when I leave, how can I leave it behind, but not leave myself behind, but take something with me and go from there? And one of the surprises I had was I was team lead of an organization, and somebody asked me, "Would you be my mentor?" I never thought of it. So, and then this idea came into my head, and that's what I'm doing right now. So take something from where you are and take it to the next step. I think that's the liminal space. It's not clear, but it gets shape if you allow it to.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yes. Thank you for sharing. Who's next on your screen, or who would you like to hand over to?
Yes, you are.
I am.
Yes, you are.
I live in between. I think this is the place where I feel the most comfortable now, but it's taken me a couple of years. And so I've lived in France for 30 years now, I think, originally from Germany, but never felt fully German either because I have some British extraction. And now it doesn't really matter anymore. I'm just me. And I feel like I know a little bit of all these three cultures. And I think I have integrated here in France. I can do French. I can speak French. I have some habits perhaps that are French, some routines that are French, some rituals that are French. But I always see all these three cultures with a bit of a critical view as well, a bit of an outside view, but I think it can be an advantage. So I don't feel uncomfortable with it anymore. So, but I feel very comfortable in international groups like these, and it gets sometimes a little bit less comfortable in all French groups when I'm the only foreigner. And the first question is not, tell me, what do you do in life? But the first question is, where does your little accent come from? Okay, and I hand over to Luis.
I think something I like what you said about living there all the time. I think because I'm a very curious person and I always like to try new things. Sometimes I'm there all the time. I don't like it. I still don't like it. I feel very uncomfortable and vulnerable all the time, but I'm learning to accept that I I can be a beginner all the time. Um, so my job is as an educator, but I play a lot with creativity and technology and game-based education. So many times I'm in the place where I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to use that technology. I don't know that. No, I don't know many things, but I like. I'm trying to enjoy the transitional period, let's say, from being in point A going to point B. But because it's all the time, it can be very overwhelming. But I'm learning, so that's why I like what you said. I think you explained it very well.
And I think many of us here in the room that I know personally, I don't know all of you, but um, um, it also makes us feel a little bit like a child again, right? So and to have this kind of in a positive sense, so to have a new look at things and to discover things and yeah. Yes. Who would you like to hand over to?
To be.
B.
Hi, Baron, I'd just like to say on my screen, you are in the middle of the road. You're in the middle of the road.
Yes.
Um, so I also agree with Luis, this idea of becoming or being in the middle of something that hasn't materialized or and hoping someone on the TV that I see often, she always says, your dream could be valid.
Mm.
And I like that idea that what you're trying to create has a valid place, and you just have to create it.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
let's see. I will turn over to Victoria.
Right. And for those of you who joined a little bit late, I don't know, Victoria, if you heard the instructions, we're talking about in-betweens, so moments when we felt kind of either in between cultures or in between life situations, but only if everybody is comfortable with it. So if you're not comfortable with it, just tell us where you're calling in from or whatever. Here we go.
Yes, I've heard this instruction, Brent, and yeah, I would really prefer to say that I'm from Kiev, from Ukraine. So as you can understand, we have a lot of situations when we are in between. And most of those situations are we are in between the air raid attacks at the moment. But I think that mostly we are going to discuss how people feel in between different cultures. And here I think that again, this what I think that I'm lucky because I'm Ukrainian, and for most of my life I have been living in this country, in Ukraine. I met hundreds and thousands of people from different countries. I have been traveling to more than 40 countries, and it has been always very nice for me to come back home, so that I do not feel in between cultures, but I feel that I belong to the country and to the culture I belong, and I'm proud of. But also, I think that we are speaking about different life situations when you feel that you have closed one door and then you have not probably opened the next door, and so you are now standing between those doors, and you ask yourself, you question yourself why I'm here and what I'm doing in between. Yeah, And I think the topic is very interesting to explore, and hopefully we'll do that today. Because I mean, how you feel, what you think, and do you see any sense being in between, on the level of people, but also on the level of countries? Because we often here ask ourselves the questions: so, what sense does it make for us at the moment to be between peace and peace? Yeah. And this is also a good question to discuss. And I pass over to Cindy.
Thank you for sharing, Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. This is a very fascinating question for me. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late arriving to the discussion. In between, for me, sounds binary. This or that, and I don't feel. I don't feel in between right now. What I feel is that given a situation, I pull out a different part of my personality. I wasn't born in Italy. I live in Italy and I speak in Italian. And so that brings out a different part of my personality. If I go to France, then I pull out another part of my personality. And so I would say, instead of being in between, I would say I'm more flexible, that there are lots of different parts of who I am. And depending on where I go, I don't feel like out of it. I feel in it because I pull out a different part of myself to put into the situation. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does make sense. Yeah, for me, it sounds a bit like in between sounds as if we're like my background on a road and it's linear and we go from one place to another. And what you're telling me is a little bit more circular, right? It's a bit more like we could go anywhere in any direction and we can grow from in between, from within us as well. So it's multi-directional, multi-dimensional. Am I making sense?
Yeah, whatever the situation calls for, I just kind of pull out.
Yeah.
I have a definition of artistry that I use, and artistry is your for me, it's your skill set. And whatever part of your personality you decide to put into your skill set in any given situation.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel I'm sorry, I'm not helping with the discussion here, but I don't feel in between. I feel flexible.
You're enriching the discussion. Thank you very much, Cindy. Can you hand over to somebody you see on the screen?
Kaylee, have you responded?
No.
I have not. I can do that. Well, I'm Kaylee. I'm from the United States. A time when I felt in between was when I lived in the Dominican Republic for 2 years. I went there for religious purposes, and I didn't know the language at all before I left. It was a very new and different experience, but I would say it was actually like one of my favorite experiences of my life. Like getting to go to a completely new culture, learn a new language, and just get to know the people. So I would say the in-between is honestly a great place. And I want to find another place where I can experience that similar circumstance.
Great. And Kylie, it's your first time on this program. So thank you very much for joining. And I think we haven't heard from Veronica and Diana. You're off camera. I don't know if you can speak. If not, that's also perfectly fine. But let's hand over to Veronica.
Yeah, let's see. In between, well, I think actually it's part, I like what Cindy said with regard to feeling flexible. I think most of my life has been a borderline or borders kind of, maybe even borderline kind of personality. I grew up on a border and I am Mexican American. And so most of my life I have had what I would consider those in-between times where I wasn't quite one and wasn't quite another, and trying to find that equilibrium between who I think I am and who others perceive me as being. So I think, yeah, I've felt that a lot in my sort of cultural identity, but I think also even in just my personal identity. I think right now in my life, I am at a particular moment where my identity as a mother is transforming. Both my children are leaving, and so it's like, it feels like an in-between space too. Not that that I would changing how I'm going to spend my days, even very pragmatically. Not having to drop anybody off at school or pick anybody up, or thinking about vacation times. And that is a different, I feel an in-between time, how I'm going to be a parent to an adult now. So
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And we have Diana on camera now. Hello, which signals me that you would like to say something.
Yes, do you hear me there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. It's like very noisy around here, so I'm sorry.
We don't
So yes, I just wanted to say that in between, it's not only in between could be between two parts, but when we have many different influences all over, different people, different countries that are near us, and I've been working in different countries. I have been having different experience. My feeling is not only can be in between sometimes, but can be also like a togetherness, like a mixing, like a mixture. Like I think more of transitions and mixtures and different colors, and not in between. Is not only as like as only one part. Is mixture of things. So at the end, yeah, it's in that way that I feel it, like a positive. You don't have to choose. You just have to let it go and let it go with the flow, something like that.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Leah just joined. I will not put you on the spot here and ask you this deep question because you have just joined. So I give you the time to actually get accustomed with all these faces here on the screen. And I would like to hand over to Monica in a minute. So this session, those of you who know the series, will be a little bit unusual in a sense that well, usually we have a guest and then we chat about something and then we go into activities pretty quickly. But when Monica told me about her project, I thought, wow, I think we really need something like a more classic presentation with pictures so that people can actually see it. And but I can promise you the content will be anything but classic. And as I said before, I was kind of intrigued by this. No, I didn't say it before. I was kind of intrigued by this on LinkedIn. So many of you, I think, are familiar with the hero's journey as a story format. Some of you here, we have some interculturalists in the room, are probably familiar with Bastian Künzel's book, The Learner's Journey. Some of you are probably familiar with the Shiro's Journey. And so today we're going to talk about the foreigner's journey and many other things. So I hand over to you, Monica.
Thank you very much, Bernd. I will try to share my screen. Just a second. Okay, I have changed computer and it's asking me for a password.
Ooh.
Oh no, okay. I have to quit and join the call again. Oh
Okay,
no.
no problem.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. It should be 30 seconds.
Okay, no problem. We can bridge that time
Okay, sorry.
very, 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 very well. So anybody has worked with the hero's journey before as a format? Victoria is nodding. Yes. Can you tell us a bit about it?
I didn't like it, Bernd.
Yes. Why not?
I'm sorry. Maybe because everything is presupposed there and there is a clear line. You start from there and you finish there. Yeah. And they speak about like it is like a plot of a book. So you start here, you start with a challenge, and then you go through certain stages. But I think that the reality, the real life is far from that. So, and maybe that's because I don't like models and, and all these paths. That's why I'm afraid I'm not the best person to share about it, but I know that you know also. So you can of course share your experience. Maybe it is different, and maybe you are much more positive about the hero's journey than me.
Well, it's a format of a story, right? So, and stories are never reality, are they? I think a story is always how we frame and maybe remember and also frame reality. Reality is so much more complex than that. And then also when we watch movies and read novels and so on, very very often they follow a structure that makes it interesting to follow. But we're not here to talk about the hero's journey. We're just bridging the gap. So we're happy to have Monica back and
Yes.
also her presentation on the screen. So
Can you all hear me?
yes, we can hear you, we can see
Okay.
the screen, and we can see you as well. So over to you.
Okay, what an entrance, right? I'm super happy to be here. This is the magical in-between, finding glimmers and discomfort. It's my heart project. So I'm gonna try and walk you through where this is coming from. Trigger warning, I'm talking about negative personal experiences, just so you know. But let's get started. Let's go to the in-between. So a bit about me. My name is Monica Matei. I founded a Copenhagen-based experience design studio called Monica, and we craft extraordinary gatherings for curious humans. My signature project is the Foreigner's Journey, which I'm going to tell you a lot about, and I'm going to show you a lot of pictures. But I want to go a few years back and make you see where all this inspiration and where this project was actually coming from. So this is my childhood. I grew up in Romania, and I consider myself as having a happy childhood. I was playing outside a lot of greenery and family time. I have a brother as well, and this is my mom in the picture, and probably my dad was the one shooting the picture there. But this is chapter 1 of the story. This is where I come from and where my roots really are. But it didn't remain like this. So obviously, you know, I am an expat by now. I'm a foreigner. And chapter 2 of my life started when I was 14 years old. So I was a teenager, and this was my new home, actually. We moved from a relatively large city in Romania to this small town in the south of Spain. And that was the move. I was 14 years old. We moved with the entire family. And I want to ask you all this quiz question. Fun time. So what do you think happened next? We have 3 options. I will read them out to you. And it is 2 truths and 1 lie. And you have to use the chat to tell me which one do you think is the lie. And I'm not able to see the chat, but I'm hoping that Bern can tell me about what's going on there. So what do you think happened next after this move from Romania to Spain? A, I integrated right away. B, I spoke fluent Spanish within 2 months. C, it was horrible.
Okay. Did you say there were 2 truths and 1 lie?
2 truths and 1 lie, yes.
It makes it more difficult because I thought A and B were lies. So Diana says C is a lie. Louis says C is a lie. Victoria says A is a lie. Annika says A. Veronica A. Leah says C. Cindy says A. Louis says C is true. So
Okay. I think a lot of you got it right, but I'm not going to reveal it yet. The story itself will reveal, so stay tuned. So just wanted to show you where I'm coming from. So these two photographs are from Romania, actually. And no, I did not grow up in the countryside. I wasn't in nature every day, but I wanted to show you how, like, the nature that I was used to and that my body was used to. So this was these European green lush forests, and we also have these winter wonderland, right? In the cold season, in winters, and we also have the four seasons and so on. So I went from this, that was very what I was used to and what was dear to my heart, to this. And you might think, oh my God, this looks so exotic, right? This brown, red cliffs and those interesting landscapes. And why wouldn't you want to embrace that and be amazed by them, right? But instead, it was a huge shock for me. So first of all, it was not my decision to move countries. It was my parents' decision, and it was a financial decision. It was basically looking for a better life abroad, better opportunities in the labor market, and so on. And it was basically going to a different world, right? Like, I thought, like, is this even the same planet? And I still remember that the fruit and vegetables there tasted completely different to the ones I was used to growing up. So I felt like a rug had been pulled from under my feet. Like, not even the most basic things were the same. So I had lost touch with everything I had a relationship with. And it took a very long time for my body to get used to it. In fact, I'm not sure if I ever got used to how things were in Spain. And even now that I live in Denmark, some things still feel very alien to me because there's that very deep imprint from my childhood that I cannot let go of. So yeah, it was actually those who picked the option C, that it was horrible. You were right. It was a shock. So, hello trauma, my old friend. And this was my new home. On the left is the city we landed in. It was my parents' choice. Really weird city. If you ask me, it's not even a city, it's a village. So I was also moving from a city with a lot more people and a bit more, I don't know, cosmopolitan is a big word, but I guess you get it. And going to a very small place where they have not really met other foreigners before. So me and my brother, for example, this is our school on the right. We're kind of the only foreigners in this school, and everything was very village-like, like very small-minded. And I got this message that, just be like us. How hard could it be? Just speak like us, just behave like us. And yes, if you answer to option B, that was a truth, it's also correct. I learned Spanish within 2 months. Within the first 2 months, I could have a conversation. Also because I was basically put in school right away, and I had to, pass the exams in a completely different language that I did not know a word of before. So in a way, it was force-fed to me, the language, and I had to basically forcefully learn it in order to survive. And I quickly became this kind of a copy of everybody else. I guess it was a coping mechanism of, okay, the only way to make it here in this hostile environment is to become one of them and, be a people pleaser and hide who you are, because that will never be accepted. So I had a very, very negative experience here, unfortunately. So the closer I got to fitting in, the further away I got from myself. And that meant basically suppressing everything that was authentic about me, unfortunately. And well, that chapter ended when I was, old enough to make my own decisions, and I had the job and I could move. I moved away. Surprisingly, I didn't move back to Romania. There are many reasons for that, but there's chapter 3 is Denmark. And actually, before telling you about Denmark, I wanted to mention that emigrating at age 14 is very, very difficult. It's a very sensitive age because it's the age when you kind of try to turn your attention and reference point from your family, your parents especially, to your peers, your group of friends. And I didn't have a group of friends for a long time because of this hostility, of this, if I would even use the word bullying, of like, you're not like us, you're not from here, you're excluded, and so on. So still to this day, it's a sore spot for me, and I'm still recovering from it. But I've come a long way. And Denmark has been a bit of a liberation. Like, this was my decision to move, and that was something, part of my healing journey. Like, I choose, and I really want this place. And it has more elements that felt like home to me than before. And the greenery is here. The architecture is a bit more home-like for me, but still, and I did not research this before going to Denmark, it's somehow happened. It's a very small place. It's 5 million people, and it's a society that is very homogeneous, and they value sameness. And that is a trouble if you're a foreigner, because you're not the same and you will never be the same. And, basically you're standing out at all times. And that is not always valued in this society. But at the same time, I found a lot of liberation, fresh air, and opportunities in here, and many good friends. So given this journey that I had, a few chapters that I presented to you already, I started having these questions. Like, can you stay authentic as a foreigner? And what happens when your roots grow thin? And will I ever get that warm, fuzzy feeling of belonging again, of home? And am I the only one feeling this way, right? And also the reason I've been asking those questions is because for the longest time, I've been feeling small. I've been feeling like I didn't have a voice, that I was undervalued, and like this perpetual outsider. And right now, I am more at peace with it, but also I've been feeling very tired of being in that place. So enter chapter 4. I call it the Foreigner 2.0. I'm kind of trying to create a new narrative for myself, and also bringing other people in because I do think that I'm not the only one feeling this way. So this picture is from the experience that I am co-facilitating, and I've co-designed. I will tell you more about my creative partner in a moment. And we hosted for expats in Copenhagen who've been here, well, who have been expats or foreigners or immigrants, if you prefer that word, for 1 year or longer. And the reason we have that, cap for filtering participants is because you need a certain maturity in your journey in order to relate to what we have prepared for you in this experience. We had people before that were a bit too fresh, just moving abroad, and they found it a bit negative. And the problem is that they are still in this honeymoon phase where everything is new and shiny and there's a lot of discovery and growth, and they haven't been through the struggles yet. So yes, I'm introducing to you The Foreigner's Journey. It's an immersive experience for those who live between worlds. And in the picture, there's me, of course, on the left, but there's also my creative partner, Adele, and this is a co-creation of both. And we're basically trying to create, maybe create is a strong word, but spark some sort of transformation in the narrative that foreigners are caught in. And we want to transform those views of feeling less than, of feeling excluded, of feeling like you're not belonging, into something more like an opportunity, a superpower, a magic. Yeah, something more empowering. And I want to show you a lot of pictures from the journey for what it looks like.
So for those of you who are a little bit less familiar with the format, if I understand correctly, it's an experience with you and Adele performing as actors, right? With the participants who then become more than just an audience. They have to interact with you and with each other, I suppose. So it's immersive theater, basically.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, because I tend to forget that this is not the typical thing. So let me roll back. Yes, it is an immersive experience, and by that we mean that, it's not a workshop, it's not just an event, and you don't go there to listen to someone give a talk or do some sort of exercises with post-its or simple discussions. We take a step further and we invite people into a different world that has different rules than the outside world, and we invite them to play and engage with the invitations that we give them. It is, we use a metaphor of a plane ride. This is why maybe I can go back in this picture here, we are dressed like stewardesses, right? We are checking people in for this flight towards the foreigner's journey. And it's very playful and poetic, right? We try to use theater, immersive theater. We are playing a role here, definitely, to approach difficult topics in ways that could make these topics feel lighter and more approachable. And yeah, what else can I say about it? The journey has different phases, and these phases are the phases we see that foreigners go through. As I mentioned before, there's the honeymoon, when everything is new, you just moved, and then what happens next? Well, you start to adapt, you grow, you expand who you are because of the influence of the new culture. And then things go wrong, and you fail at some things, and you start feeling lonely, and so on. And let's see if I...
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe
Have I explained it enough? I'm gonna explain a little bit more in a second also.
Maybe that's a good moment to open up for questions. And maybe I kick it off with the first question. Now, I understand from your introduction that it is a personal motivation also to launch this project. And what kind of and it's certainly very rewarding for the visitors, for the guests, or the players, or whatever you call them. What do you get back from them? How does it make you feel after your personal journey, as well as an experienced stager, as a performer?
Yes, I love that question. So this is the experience and the kind of community that I never had in my own foreigner's journey. So it's been especially healing for me to both plan this, design this, and facilitate it, and hear the stories that people share thanks to the container that we are creating here. And hear that again and again, I'm not alone, and I felt this way as well, and others have felt the same way. Yeah.
Are there moments when your guests feel, or how do you help them open up and share? Is there a moment when they feel uncomfortable? And did you have to, after the first time you ran it, did you have to adjust things? Did you learn from the experience and so on?
Yes, we are adjusting all the time. This is the third edition that we recently run, and every time it's an improved experience because we learn from the groups that we invite in. And basically, this third edition keeps some things from the first one, but it's actually quite a new experience. And to your question of how do we make people open up and share, it takes a long time to get there. We wait for that ask, that bigger ask, for bringing them to that place. So we start with smaller invitations and we get smaller yeses from people. And it's very playful, at the beginning. It's very positive and really playful. And everybody, is amused and it's easing into it. And at one point we switch. And then we go to the more darker sides of the journey. But again, they have been warmed up, they have been prepared, and they have been interacting with us as characters and with the room and with one another. And then it becomes very natural to get to that point where we're actually sitting in a dark cellar with only candles, and we're sharing these stories of loss. The question is, what have you lost as a foreigner? And then people start sharing, and it just becomes really natural. And we also have this kind of feedback mechanism that if something that's being shared in the room resonates with you, we invite people to snap their fingers. And there's a lot of this going on. So then the speaker feels like, that warm hug, like, hey, I feel you. That's how I've been feeling all this time as well.
And how do they come out of the journey? So is there some kind of, I suppose you don't end there, we've all lost something and everybody is crying and everybody's going home. I suppose there is some kind of a happy ending.
Yes, but actually this is something that I brought the challenge for all of you today to actually help me make that better. And I'll tell you why. We bring people to a very negative place. It's also very community building place and very empowering. But then we also work towards reframing the loss into opportunity. And we go through several activities before we go to that lighter place. And we end in a place of celebration of us foreigners. So it takes a lot of care and a lot of opening a space for sharing struggles, but also closing it mindfully and building on that. It's not about bringing it up suddenly. It's about, okay, they have been really down. Now, what's the next step to bring the mood a bit up again? And so on. It's like a scale. We do it progressively again.
Yeah. Okay. So before we come to that challenge, are there any questions from anybody else? Just open your mic or put it in the chat. Questions about the experience itself, about immersive theater in general. Any questions there?
I actually was interested to know, as you this is more procedural or process wise, because I actually engage in a lot of experiential learning in the program I create. How do you, like, people already know when they get there that they're going to go through an immersive experience, or is it something they discover as they go with you? Like, in other words, how do you deal with maybe a surprise if they don't know before?
Okay. We mentioned that is an immersive experience already in the invitation, basically the event description. And we know that people don't always know what we mean by immersive. So we try to describe what it's like and what is expected of them and so on. Like, so I think we try to hint that this is not the usual. But we also try to not reveal too much, right? It's balance, and not everybody gets it.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
always a struggle with experiential learning, I think.
Agreed, yes.
Good. Right. Also, I have another question. So because when Veronica and I do experiential learning in the intercultural place, sometimes we have projects where we work together. Very often we work in different places. We always kind of start from the concepts, right? So from the intercultural things we would like people to take on board, or maybe realize, or what we would like people to be aware of. Correct me if I'm wrong, Veronica. And you took it from the other side, right? Personal experience, and then also your job as immersive theater designer and actor, without using those concepts, but to a certain extent following those concepts, because it may be an underlying thing that you have experienced yourself. So do you think at some stage you would need these concepts, or do you think it's better to have this kind of creative approach to it? I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
Do you mean the concepts of immersive and everything
No.
that is attached to
No,
that?
I mean more the kind of conversations we had before when I gave you a term, right, which comes from the intercultural research of the last 20, 30 years, and you didn't dig into that. So you basically designed the whole thing without that kind of baggage. Do you think it would have been useful, or do you think it would have kind of probably made it a little bit too academic and too much like an academic thing?
So those academic terms, I think they have a place. Like I like when you mention them to me in relation to the things I tell you about, because they legitimize the work.
Yeah.
So it gives me confidence. But it's also a feeling like, okay, this structure and this thing I'm going to invite people into feels right. And I can see that people are relating to it, and is generative, right? So I don't necessarily feel like I have a great need for those terms.
Okay, great. Now, I think we should get everybody to do something. So I will organize, if you don't mind, 2 breakouts. There will be small breakouts because it's a small group. So 3 people in each room, if you don't mind.
Oh yes, let me stop sharing this.
Yes, and the question we would like to ask is, how in your work do you get people from the uncomfortable space of, questioning their situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a cultural space, because not all of us work in the intercultural field, but some of us do. To that comfortable place, because for me, even in learning as such, unless it is just an accumulation of information, which is basically also a form of learning, but then you basically just get what you expect, right? So tell me how to do it and I do it. But transformative learning, transformational learning is actually about changing, right? It's about changing, and not everybody wants to change, and it's not comfortable to change, and you have to let go, and you have to let things, you have to say goodbye to things that you were probably proud of, and you have to realize also that maybe you've been doing things in the wrong way, or you're taking things from the wrong side, and you have to admit errors to a certain extent, or correct your view of yourself and the world around you. So that's powerful when it happens, but it's also frustrating at first, right? And it's also a bit irritating, to say the least. So how would you get people from that uncomfortable in between to the magic in between? And so maybe 5-10 minutes in the breakouts, and then later on we share in the main room, and we see what we can do for the foreigner's journey. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so welcome back. Now it's a good sign, I think, that nobody came back early. You were probably kind of mid-conversation. Also, Monica and I had a very interesting conversation that we will share with you as well. We were hesitating if we should come to the rooms, but then I decided that maybe we leave them alone and let things kind of marinate a little bit and see what they make of it without giving too much guidance. So Anneke, Kaylee, and Leah. So anybody wants to share what you've been discussing?
Leah, would you like to share?
I think you're better in explaining things.
So you can learn.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Kaylee was there as well. I think we had all three different entry points where I was immediately designing something. Leah was more in the kind of where is the progress to be made, and she was very into the judgmental part of the story. And Kaylee was more the academic. Yay, she shared some stuff about transformational learning, and she thought if you know the phases, you can give it to people and let them see or feel that you're only in one stage of the whole spectrum, so you can move on.
Yeah.
So that's what we discussed in a nutshell, I think.
Great. Yes. Don't know if you found the answer, but Monica and I discussed the question that, I mean, experiences take an hour, 2 hours. How long is your experience, Monica?
It's 3 hours.
3 hours. So it's quite long.
Yeah.
But it's not 3 years or 30 years, right? So in 3 hours, you can do a part of the journey, but you may not be able to lead people from frustration, sharing frustration, to embracing the opportunity. That would be really magical. And I've never succeeded. And I don't think anybody can, right? But we can open doors. And it probably takes a number of experiences like this, like, the sequences or sequels to get people to that point. And but I think experiences can be an eye opener and can change perspectives and can show the way, and probably more than courses or books, or for most people, right? So it's not true for everybody, but most people probably more than books or or counseling or whatever. I think what is very powerful, some of you, normally we have a lot of, anybody here works as a coach? No, very often we have quite a few. Yes, Victoria, you do. Coaching is, of course, very, very powerful because you basically accompany people over a stretch of time, right? Without giving them too much advice. So basically they have to come up with their own solutions, but you are there, right? So you're a bit of a sounding board. And that's very powerful when people are in that situation already, going through those changes. Let's hear from room 2, where we had Diana, Veronica, and Victoria.
We'll start. I think we had a nice discussion, and we've got a little bit different approaches to uncomfortable situations, although I think that we also agree that it's not our responsibility, but these people's responsibility who find themselves in the uncomfortable situations or positions to deal with this primarily. I said that in my country, but not only here, we are trying to avoid, dragging the people from the uncomfortable situations for 2 reasons. First of all, if you are trying to do that, you demonstrate that you are like superior, you are more knowledgeable, you are better, and this person is not resourceful enough, and so it's not equal position. So I would really prefer this person to go through this situation and support this person somehow, because I think that this person is resourceful to do so. And then also there is a view that there is no such a thing like uncomfortable situations, because these are all the situations to grow.
Yeah.
So we have to be thankful for them.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's that's a powerful thing to say. And I know that you are also you have a solution-focused approach, right? So
yes, exactly. That's what that's what I shared, because so I would never focus on the uncomfortable situation. I would rather ask a person, okay, tell me how a comfortable situation looks like for you. And then I would shift the focus of attention to this, and we will discuss how the situation looks for this person, looks best for this person, because there is no need really to detail the uncomfortable situation. In other words, if a person, for example, if we take the culture, and if a person moves to a different country, I would rather discuss how would his best, situation looks like, and and start from that, because so you build the ground for a meaningful discussion, rather than to detail what differences or what threats or whatsoever this person would face there.
So that would be, if we apply that to the foreigner's journey, that would be a different journey. So it would start in the future, basically. So
yes.
So tailored transportation into the future. Where do you see yourself in 2 years' time? What is the ideal situation from you? And then you would kind of roll back.
Not really. I do not. Not really. Yeah, you're right in a way. So we view the situation from the future, but so first we have to create this future that is already present in your present. Because if you create something, it maybe it is not present in the physical life yet, but you have already created this. Which means that, and this is the most powerful thing about creation and about the solution-focused approach, that you create your preferred future, and then you start discussing your present from that place where you are already placed yourself and other people. Yes, so this journey would look very differently with the solution-focused approach.
Okay. Right. Interesting. Maybe some inspiration for Monica and her colleague.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also interesting what you said about uncomfortable. I had a workshop 2 days ago about emotions. And I shared that emotions are not necessarily positive or negative. There are just, phenomena, and we make them positive or negative in our brains, right? And so we interpret them, and like a crazy funfair ride, right? So roller coaster ride, where some people see it as exciting and other people see it as totally scary, and they would never in their lives do that. Um, but it's actually the same physiological arousal, right? It's the same reaction. The heart rate goes up, and so on. So a lot of things are like this. So reframing it takes time, but it's the same sensation, basically, or a very similar sensation, and that's a powerful, powerful message. You said there was some disagreement in the group, or there was different opinions in the group. I would like to hear some of the other opinions as well.
I wouldn't say that we disagreed, but I think definitely that Veronica and Diana would add to what I have just said.
Good.
Well, I shared with Victoria at the end and with Diana at the end that I actually, in my courses, aim to put my students in uncomfortable situations. So I feel sort of like I'm the mean person there. But I was telling, the first thing I said is I'm not sure if I see my role in making people who are uncomfortable more comfortable. I feel I want them to identify their discomfort. I want them to identify their reaction to their discomfort. I want them to identify the values that their discomfort touches, but not necessarily removing that discomfort. I don't think I would, in other words, I guess like what we're talking about, sort of to sit with the discomfort, to create a space for the discomfort. For Victoria, I guess I think it's also very different in terms of context, because of course I'm with students and maybe their experiences are I don't touch their experiences as well, or I'm trying to awaken certain experiences that they might connect to. But when you're coaching, I think you have a wealth of experience right in front of you that you're trying to get that person to dig deep into. And I think that's a different goal for me. But I definitely thought for me that that discomfort was sort of something that is necessary for growth, and so I'm not sure if I want to make it any easier. I know that doesn't sound nice, but it's sort of in a way my view in essence. So
Yes, that kind of resonates with me as much as what Victoria said just before. Both kind of resonate with me because very often, like Veronica, I get to work with people who are not in the situation yet, but are being prepared for future experiences abroad. And they often take things very lightly before they go and say, well, nothing can happen to me. And so I wouldn't necessarily call it discomforted, but it's a bit like teasing them with something that kind of creates a bit of a friction, and to see how they would react to that friction through simulations, through plays, games, and so on, that make them perhaps a little bit uneasy and think, oh yeah, maybe I'm not as so much in control of my emotions as I think I am, and to be prepared for the real thing. Yeah. Interesting.
And can I ask you a question? Why do you think that you are preparing them for this by doing this? I mean, people are confident that they won't have any problem, and you say, no, 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 you are wrong. You will have some problems. Yeah. So why are you doing this?
I'm not telling them you will have problems, but I'm trying to make people aware of certain human reactions like biases, certain reactions like stress and so on to certain situations, in order to be aware of them and to be maybe also to say, okay, I have been in these situations already, so it's not going to be something totally new when I go abroad. And I have also certain solutions in myself already. I have certain powers in me already because I've been through similar situations of change before.
I wanted to agree with Bernd because this is what I was talking about in the group, that I am talking to my students because my group is students, but I am trying to make them conscious about the situation, being conscious about what can happen, what could happen in a possible future, what to be like, prepare them with the possibilities that they can be, and how could they, the different ways of reacting to the different situations. Of course, it's theoretical, it can be practical, making role games, but at the end, we know that in real life, things can happen pretty different at the end, but at least if we work consciously in ourselves, I think this is something really strengthening.
Thank you.
I think I'm a little bit pessimistic about this because you will never know how you would react to situations that would happen in your life. Actually, yeah. And of course, it's if can you be more prepared? You can be more prepared, but I think that when we're trying to challenge people, telling them, or if you will feel you would probably face this situation or that, or you have to be very much aware of your biases. I think that we do not add to their confidence. That's what I think.
Can I make a suggestion? We have a practical thing at hand. Monica wants to redesign something for the foreign people in Copenhagen, and they feel in this, I think, in this dark place where they light a fire but share the stories, uncomfortable. If I'm right, and what would be your goal to bring them to the comfortable state again? Why do you want to do it? Maybe there's the solution, because if there's no need, then we have no discussion. Sorry. So why do you want to do it?
That's the question. By the way, I love listening to all your ideas and suggestions. I've been writing them down, and thank you for like opening my possibilities with new tools. The reason why I'm doing this is because I think people are stuck. Like they're not moving, they are stuck in this negativity of, it sucks being a foreigner. I'm always going to feel this way and so on. So they don't see that future, maybe. And I want to give them some other ways to see the same story. Kind of, that's the goal. And I don't want to make it comfortable. I love the idea that the uncomfortable is a productive place. I agree with that. But when you get stuck, you need some sort of, seed to arrive to take you to that other place, maybe. So that's what I'm trying to do. Not sure if that answers your question.
Yes, I'm just suggesting to move to something practical so we can see what it would look like if we do it in your case. So maybe it gives more space also for Victoria and Veronica and Diana to share where something could fit in.
Yeah. There's also something about this series as opposed to many places, right? I don't want to become political, but we don't have to agree. We don't have to all have the same opinions, right? Disagreement is wonderful. And also we don't have to find the middle ground. We don't have to find, consensus on everything, right? So there are different approaches. And that's great. And that's also the importance of having such a diverse, I use the word community because we've been doing this series for a while, and it's sometimes the same people who come back and so on. and through different networks, and then also new people I've never seen before, maybe some invitees by the speakers and so on. And that creates a very, very rich conversation. But it's not always that we end a session like, oh, yes, we all think this, a thing like that. So that's also one of the richnesses of this. Monica and I have been discussing things like, to what extent do foreigners actually have to adapt? So we were thinking about, sometimes it's maybe a bit like acting, where you have to maybe change something that you already have in yourself, but you don't have to become like them. Nobody can anyway. But then also we said it always takes two to tango. So if there is no curiosity and acceptance on the side of locals, it makes it much more difficult. But I would like to end this session, conscious of the time, we have 1 minute left, with a question for Monica. What are the next steps? What is the next edition of the Foreigner's Journey? Or I also heard or saw on LinkedIn that you also have a community thing where a meetup or something like this. So what are the next steps for Ceremonia?
Yes. So the Foreign's Journey is here to stay. I'll keep improving on it with new additions, but there's the community that I'm trying to build called the Foreigners Collective. And it's the same philosophy of how can we get to a more productive place instead of being stuck in this negativity through smaller and bigger gatherings, through different topics, but having those rules like we're not here to complain, we're here to inspire each other and use our gifts and our magic as foreigners.
Thank you. I think this
and thank you all.
I think this is the wonderful conclusion for this session. Thank you very much for coming.